Hey guys, this is MTG Degree and my name is Luke. Today we're going to look at how to turn a junk foil into an adorable token for you guys to use in your games. The first thing you'll need is a surface. I'm using a playmat, but this is pretty stupid. The next thing you guys will need is a junk foil, in this case Lens of Clarity. I go ahead and perfect fit all of my foils as soon as I open them. This stops them from warping so severely as many foils tend to do. Next we'll be protecting the surface that we're going to do this on. In this case I'm just using 10 sheets of cardstock paper. We'll be using acetone to remove the ink off of this foil. Also note that you'll find this in your grocery store as nail polish remover. Concerns about constant use of acetone have made people make nail polish remover that does not include acetone. However, for this purpose you guys will go ahead and find the one that actually includes the active ingredient we're looking for. Wear gloves if you have sensitive skin, or if you're doing more than one of these. Alright, so now we're going to apply our acetone to our paper towels, and be aware that an open acetone container is not your friend. This chemical will dissolve a lot of things, including the varnish right off your kitchen table. So make sure that you don't bump into your acetone container as you're defoiling. Simply rub the acetone wetted paper towel against your junk foil. You'll find the ink starts to fall off immediately. In some older sets, you'll find that the ink is very hard to remove, and therefore just going and asking friends for their junk foils after a draft can be a much better way of obtaining them. I like to flip over and reapply acetone to my paper towels after a short period of time, as this can quickly become an exercise in smearing ink around. You'll find as you defoil that the ink around the edges is the most difficult to remove, although it only requires a slightly firmer hand than the rest of the card. I know that while I first learned this technique simply for making tokens, I immediately started applying the technique to use foil for all sorts of purposes. If you guys have any interesting ideas on how to use foil, even if you don't have the confidence to use it yourself in an art project, write in the comments how you think it can best be used. Don't forget to cap that bottle of acetone when you're done. Now that you've finished the first step in your token making process, take a few seconds and just gaze at the beauty of naked foil. Isn't she just a beauty? As always, if I'm going to walk away from a foil, I put a perfect fit sleeve over it to make sure that it doesn't bend or warp. Alright guys, so before we get to the art, I thought that I'd give you a little warning here. If you look on the left is a beautifully clean foil, and on the right there's one with what appears to be like glue on the right of the card. I got the effect on the right by simply defoiling incorrectly, and basically the only difference between the two is that the one on the left was defoiled very quickly. The one on the right was defoiled slowly. Now when you take your time with defoiling, the acetone pulls into the side of the card and lifts that layer up away from the card, causing that kind of foggy effect. The first token we're going to make here is the morph token, and I always start my tokens by just throwing on the power and toughness so I don't forget. And I will admit that off to the side of this video I've included a little reference of the original image. If you guys are ever doing any art of well-known characters, feel free to just include a little image on the side for you to reference and make sure you don't miss any obvious details. I have to admit that it's a little hard to give art tips on this one because I'm making an amorphous outline in one shot. The second token I'll be making is one of my own design in this video, and that's for the manifest token. We've already had that spoiled actually, and it's just a blue version of the morph token. It's pretty boring. However, you should note as a player that there's a huge difference between the two, and therefore keeping track of your opponent's morphs versus manifest creatures is quite important. For example, attacking into 2 manifested cards, which may be land, is a lot better of a thing to do than, for example, attacking into 2 morph creatures, where you know that they are certainly creatures that can be turned up. Let's take a second out of strat talk to just enjoy this cute little morph token we've made together. We're on to making our second token, the Manifest token, and the first thing we do is just throw the power and toughness on there as usual. And the next thing I'm going to include in this is actually a deck of cards. The design for this token is actually a description of the mechanic itself. The concept of Manifest is actually a little bit non-intuitive in my opinion, and therefore I feel like this is a pretty nice way of a reminder of how cards are manifested in the first place. So what I'm illustrating first here is actually a deck of cards, and I'm going to basically show the card flipping off the top of it while it's getting manifested. For the basic drawing of the deck of cards itself, basically all you're doing is drawing sort of a cube there, and then we're texturizing the center where there's all the cards stacked on top of each other. Just remember, if you're going for a cartoony look like this, that less is more. I know that's a pretty cliched phrase, but in cartooning, the more cluttered an image is, the less attractive it is, in general. Something I've neglected to mention so far in this video is that if you make a mistake, you can always just go back and wipe it off with acetone and it's perfectly clean again. The next thing we're drawing here is an arrow. And take note of the fact that we're going to start thin on the arrow and end really wide. This draws the attention away from the deck of cards and to the card that's left on the table. It also draws a very heavy distinction between foreground and background, but don't worry about that if art composition isn't your thing. Alright, so after a little extra touch-up, we're going to move and draw the last thing. Now if you've made it this far, then you're surely in the home stretch because the last object is just a straight up rectangle. Don't worry though, I won't leave it as a regular old rectangle because that would be way too boring for our exciting videos. The last thing we're going to draw on this card is a face, and in my opinion when doing this sort of thing, cute and simple is the way to go. So I'm pretty much going to draw the cutest and simplest face possible, which in my opinion is the :D smiley face. Let's take a moment and just check out what we've made here. In my opinion, pretty much the cutest manifest creature imaginable. Aw, isn't that little guy just adorable? Ahem. I hope that you guys have found this video interesting, helpful, and cute, of course. If so, you can wander that cursor down and hit that subscribe button. My name is Luke, this has been MTG Degree, and we'll see you next video.